You don't start in real estate wearing a clean suit. You start standing outside a locked door, holding a key that might not even work. The rain is hitting your shoulders, your shoes are already wet, your phone battery is on 7%, and somewhere inside your chest, there's that same heavy question you've been trying to ignore for months. What if this doesn't work? You look up at the building in front of you. Old walls, faded paint, a broken light near the entrance. Nothing about it looks special, but somehow this place feels like the beginning. You didn't grow up dreaming about property, contracts, clients, listings, commissions, or closing deals. You didn't wake up one day as a kid and say, "I'm going to sell houses." No. You started because you were tired. Tired of being broke in silence. Tired of watching other people move forward while you kept pretending you were okay. Tired of checking your bank account before buying something simple. Tired of saying, "soon," when deep down, you didn't even know what soon meant anymore. And then one day, you saw a sign. For sale. It was outside a house you passed every morning. Nothing fancy. Just a normal house, normal street, normal people walking past it like it meant nothing. But you stopped. You looked at that sign longer than you should have. Because for the first time, you didn't just see a house. You saw a way out. You didn't know the words yet. You didn't know about leads, markets, buyers, sellers, inspections, negotiations. You didn't know how cold the business could get. You didn't know how many people would ignore your calls. You didn't know how many doors would close before one finally opened. All you knew was this: somebody owned that house. Somebody was selling it. Somebody was going to make money from it. And you asked yourself, why not you? That question followed you home. It sat with you while you ate. It stared at you while you tried to sleep. It whispered to you while you scrolled through your phone, looking at people living lives that looked bigger than yours. Why not you? So you started with nothing but curiosity. You searched everything: property prices, agents, rent, apartments, land, how people buy, how people sell. You watched videos until your eyes burned. You wrote notes you barely understood. You learned words that sounded important, even when you had no idea how to use them yet. And for a while, nobody took you seriously. Not your friends, not your family, not even you. Completely. When you told people you wanted to get into real estate, they smiled in that quiet way. People smile when they think you're dreaming too loudly. You need money for that. You need connections. You need experience. You need to know people. And every time they said what you needed, you felt smaller, because you didn't have money. You didn't have connections. You didn't have experience. You didn't know people. But you had something nobody could take from you. You had hunger, not the pretty kind, not the kind people post about online, the real kind, the kind that wakes you up early and keeps you up late, the kind that makes embarrassment feel cheaper than staying the same. So you made your first call. Your hand was shaking. You stared at the number for almost 10 minutes before pressing it. When the person answered, your voice almost disappeared. "Hello. I'm calling about the apartment." That was it. That was your first step. Not a big moment, no music, no applause, no perfect confidence. Just you, your phone, and a voice that almost cracked. The person on the other side didn't care that this was your beginning. To them, it was just another call. They gave you short answers. They sounded busy. They ended the conversation fast. And when the call ended, you just sat there. Your heart was beating like you had done something dangerous. Maybe you had. Because the dangerous thing wasn't the call. The dangerous thing was becoming someone new. After that, you started walking neighborhoods. You looked at buildings like they were puzzles. You noticed balconies, windows, empty units, old signs, fresh paint, moving trucks, people standing outside gates. You listened more. You watched more. You started seeing the city differently. Every street had a story. Every door had a reason. Every house belonged to someone who wanted something, to leave, to start over, to move up, to escape, to invest, to survive. And slowly, real estate stopped being about buildings. It became about people. Then came your first real chance. A small apartment, not beautiful, not terrible, just enough. The owner wanted someone to help find a renter. You didn't even know if you were ready, but you said yes before fear could answer for you. You took pictures with your phone. Bad lighting. Crooked angles. Your reflection accidentally showing in the bathroom mirror. You posted it everywhere you could. You refreshed your messages every few minutes like your future was trapped inside the screen. Hours passed. Nothing. Then one message came in. Is it still available? You stared at those words like they were gold. You replied too fast. Yes, it is. The viewing was set for the next day. You barely slept. The next morning you arrived 30 minutes early. You checked the door. You checked the windows. You wiped dust from the counter with your sleeve. You opened the curtains to make the place feel brighter. You rehearsed what you would say. This apartment has good light. The area is quiet. The rent is fair. You repeated the lines until they sounded natural, but inside, you still felt like someone pretending to belong. Then the client arrived. You smiled. Not because you were confident, because you had to be. You opened the door and stepped aside. The client walked in, looked around, and said nothing. That silence felt loud. You started talking. Too much at first. You pointed out the kitchen, the living room, the bedroom, the windows, the building entrance. You tried to make the place sound better than it was, but then you stopped. Because something inside you knew the truth. People can feel when you're forcing it. So you took a breath. You said, it's not perfect, but it's honest. And for the price, it gives you a place to begin. The client turned and looked at you. For the first time, the room felt still. Because maybe that wasn't just about the apartment. Maybe you were talking about yourself. Not perfect. Honest. A place to begin. The client didn't take it that day. They said they'd think about it. And you nodded like that didn't hurt. But when they left, you stood alone in the empty apartment, and the hope drained out of you so fast it almost made you laugh. You had imagined it differently. You thought your first viewing would become your first deal. You thought the universe would reward you for trying. You thought courage meant the door would open. But courage doesn't always open the door. Sometimes courage just keeps you from walking away. Days passed. No deal. More messages came. Some people asked questions and vanished. Some made appointments and never showed up. Some tried to lower the price before even seeing the place. Some treated you like your time was worth nothing. And with every ignored call, every late cancellation, every empty promise, you started to understand why people quit. Quitting didn't feel dramatic. It felt reasonable. It sounded like, maybe this isn't for you. It sounded like, you tried. It sounded like, go back to something safe. Then one evening, you walked past that same for sale sign again, the one that started everything. Only this time, someone had placed a red sticker across it. Sold. You stopped. The house looked the same. The street looked the same. The sky looked the same. But you didn't. Because now you understood something you didn't understand before. Behind that small red sticker was a story. Calls, viewings, doubts, negotiations, waiting, fear, someone deciding, someone risking, someone starting over. A deal wasn't a miracle. It was a process. And if it was a process, you could learn it. So you went back. You made more calls. Your voice got steadier. You asked better questions. You learned when to speak and when to stay quiet. You learned that some clients didn't need a perfect place. They needed to feel safe choosing. You learned that owners didn't just want money. They wanted trust. You learned that every no hurt less when you stopped treating it like the end. Then came the rainy day. The day you stood outside that old building, holding the key. The apartment was supposed to be ready. The client was supposed to arrive in 5 minutes. The owner wasn't answering. The hallway smelled like paint and dust. The light above you kept flickering. And the key didn't work. You tried it once, nothing. You tried it again, still nothing. Your phone buzzed. I'm here. The client was downstairs. Your stomach dropped. This was the kind of moment that made you feel exposed, like all your pretending had finally caught up with you. Like the business was about to look you in the face and say, you don't belong here. You ran downstairs. The client stood near the entrance, umbrella in hand, waiting. You could have lied. You could have blamed the owner. You could have acted like everything was fine, but you were too tired to be fake. So you said, "The key isn't working. I'm sorry, but give me 10 minutes and I'll fix it." The client looked at you, not angry, just watching. You called the owner again. No answer. You called the building manager. No answer. You knocked on the neighbor's door. Nothing. Then another door opened. An older woman looked out at you, suspicious and quiet. You explained the situation. You showed her the listing. You showed her the messages. You asked if she knew how to reach the owner. She stared at you for a second that felt like a full year. Then she said, "Wait." The door closed. You stood there, wet shoes on old tile, trying not to look desperate. A minute later, she came back with a different key. "Try this." You ran upstairs. The key turned. The door opened. And for some reason, that sound stayed with you. Not because it was loud, because it felt like proof. You brought the client inside. The apartment wasn't amazing. The walls needed touch-ups. The window stuck a little. The bathroom mirror had a crack in the corner. But the view was beautiful. The rain softened the whole city. Lights reflected on the streets. Everything looked calm from up there. The client walked to the window and stayed there. You didn't speak. For once, you let the room do the talking. After a while, the client said, "I can see myself here." That sentence hit you harder than any compliment, because that was the moment you finally understood what you were really doing. You weren't selling walls. You were standing next to someone at the edge of their next life. You were opening a door and letting them imagine themselves on the other side. That client took the apartment. Your first deal wasn't huge. It didn't make you rich. It didn't fix your whole life overnight. But when the papers were signed and the keys changed hands, something inside you changed too. You walked outside after everything was done. The rain had stopped. The street was shining. Your phone was almost dead again. But this time you weren't scared of the low battery. You looked at your reflection in a dark shop window. Same face, different eyes, because now you had proof. You could start with nothing. You could be nervous and still show up. You could be ignored and still keep calling. You could fail at the door and still find another key. That first deal became a memory you carried into every deal after it. Whenever a client doubted you, you remembered the rain. Whenever an owner dismissed you, you remembered the locked door. Whenever you felt small, you remembered the first time someone stood in an empty apartment and said, "I can see myself here." And slowly, the business grew. Not all at once. There were still bad days, still missed deals, still people who wasted your time, still moments where you sat alone wondering if you were building something real or just chasing a version of yourself you hadn't become yet. But now you had a story. And a story is dangerous, because once you survive the beginning, you stop fearing it. You stop needing everything to look perfect before you move. You stop waiting to feel ready. You stop thinking confidence comes first. You learn that confidence is usually late. It arrives after the shaking hands, after the awkward calls, after the empty apartment, after the rain, after the key finally turns. And now, when you pass a for sale sign, you don't just stare at it like it belongs to someone else. You see the street. You see the door. You see the person waiting for a new beginning. And somewhere deep inside you, that same question returns. Only now it sounds different. Not, "Why not you?" Now it says, "Look how far you came." Because you didn't start with a company. You didn't start with a perfect plan. You didn't start with people believing in you. You started with a sign, a question, and a hunger you couldn't explain. You started by making one call. You started by walking into rooms where you felt unqualified and staying long enough to learn. You started by opening doors. And maybe that's the whole point. The first door was never just an apartment. It was you.